everyone, welcome to Backstory Sessions. I'm your host Matt. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey Kat, hey everyone, how are you?
Well, it's not Teacher Appreciation Month, but teachers in the month of May get a week and a day to be teacher appreciated. So
Teacher
I feel
Teacher Appreciation Week? That's it?
Yeah. Week, and then there's a day within the week that's like a teacher appreciation day.
Oh, so is that when they get like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, usually parents or of younger students or students when they're older will do something for their favorite teachers, and
Like bring them a cupcake or something?
yeah, sometimes the schools will like make a lunch, from restaurants or something each day of the week. They'll have like
Oh, that sounds
like a
nice.
coffee bar maybe or breakfast bar set up at one meal or
Ice
like
cream truck.
yeah, just different things like that each day of the week, and usually there's some kind of gifts that people bring for their, and it's I think like the first full week of May, so it's when most schools are pretty much at the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and so it seems like a really good time to honor teachers and all the work that they do.
Do you
And
do you remember any of the gifts that students gave to you?
I do. I have like a really funny gift actually.
Okay.
It was my last day of student teaching, and so the students they had a party for me. Like each different period, they had their own way of whether it was a cake or cupcakes or whatever. Like they each had planned their own events, but a lot of them wrote cards or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and so one class, I just asked them, like, I had a little box and they could put in it anything that they wanted me to remember them by. So it could be a note, it could be whatever that
Right.
they wanted. And this one kid, he he took a potato chip from the party stuff, and he put his name he wrote his name on that potato chip, and he put it in the box, and that's a true story, and I kept it for like a lot of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he like become famous or anything? So like maybe the
No,
chip was worth something someday, or
no, it was just worth a lot to me because he had been a student that had a difficult semester. That was all I was there for, was student teaching.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I felt like that we connected, and I was able to work well with him, and um, it was just kind of his way of saying thank you. I
Okay, potato chip. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, it's unique,
Yeah.
Definitely. Never have since gotten any potato chips like that. So
Autographed either, I assume.
it's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Have you gotten any other gifts that over the years, like when you were actually teaching?
Oh well, I'll tell you, I taught first, second, and third grade for a couple of years,
Okay.
and um, elementary school kids and their parents. I mean, that's where the presents are. Like beyond potato chip presents.
Right, yeah.
Yes, like clothes and jewelry and
Really?
like everything they bring to you. So
Oh, so they would bring in like their parents' stuff?
no, I mean like the parents would, I mean they're first, second, and third graders, so they'd all bring presents to me, and it's like it's sort of like teaching them, like if one of them said their tummy was hurting,
Right.
you know, and you said like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or whatever, give them attention, then like everyone's tummy was
Oh,
hurting.
I see. Yeah.
So with the presents, it was kind of the same thing. Like if one kid brought a present and you're like, "Oh, this is so cool," and show it to the class, then you're gonna get like a lot of presents because everybody then tells their parents,
Oh, I see.
they've got
So,
to bring they've got to bring a present to me.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of a racket. Like, oh, I need new shingles on my roof. So,
Well, I think a lot of the gifts are not even tangible things, at least for me.
hmm
Uh, like, if someone brought my favorite chewing gum,
hmm
or just things that they picked up on as being important to me.
Right.
It didn't matter if they cost, nothing, like potato chip, basically. That part of it didn't matter. But it was very, it's very nice to be appreciated, no matter, no matter what career or
hmm
whatever. And so,
So, what did kids do when, like, you were teaching what, high school when you retired?
yes, I did after first, second, and third grade. I did move to high school.
So, what were the kids giving you for Teacher Appreciation Week then?
Um, so then it would be more, again, like they would bring in candies, a
hmm
lot of them are like I love no bake cookies.
Right.
And so a lot of them would bring in things like that. Um, Tins of things, like tins of cookies.
Mm.
Uh, I, I mean, I know there were more things like a basket that their parents, like for those that had really crafty gifted parents, that
Right.
like they would bring things like that. Just a lot of different things. A lot of too, because I taught drama. A
hmm
lot of times they would bring in something related to whatever we were performing. I had, for the longest time, I had a doll dressed like a pink lady from Greece, that a student had brought in. It was in the box, and kind of like the holiday Barbie look, only it was a Sandy
Oh,
from
cool.
Greece. And I kept that probably 20 years. And one of my drama students, who has the same birthday as me, and after school we became friends, like,
Right.
uh, and he had a daughter, and so I thought it was time, to get rid of the Sandy doll. And so I give it to him to give to his daughter, and now,
Ah.
she's in middle school now. So uh, just things like that. A lot of times it would be things from the shows, or that reminded them of the shows that every time I looked at it, I would think of that person or that class.
Yeah. Well, speaking of shows, we have who's our guest this week, Kat?
Yes, we have Charlotte Stewart, and I think it's very appropriate that we have her because, you know, she played a teacher on Little House on the Prairie, so she's very famous for being Miss Beadle.
Yeah, I
And
remember her.
yeah, I think everybody, remembers Miss Beadle. And so it's great that we have, or getting to have Charlotte to, tell us what it was like to play a teacher. I don't know if she had any teaching experience, but, maybe she come from a family of teachers. We'll be finding out.
She wrote a book too, I believe. Did she not?
Yes, and we're going to talk to her about the book, and that is available on Amazon. So, she was on Twin Peaks, and she just has a really fascinating backstory. But getting to start your career as Miss Beadle, and that's pretty amazing. And it's really amazing for us to be able to celebrate teachers with this episode because we have, we've interviewed several teachers over the episodes that
Yeah, I remember we did an episode way back with three of them, and yeah, that was interesting. Right, that was right around the time the pandemic was in full swing, and they talked about the challenges of teaching during that. And then we also interviewed them. I think it was a year later, and just to catch up with, see what had changed and that sort of thing, and that was kind of interesting as well.
well, teaching, is a wonderful job. It's a difficult job, and I think that you have to, your heart needs to be in that, to be. I
Yeah,
think there's, not everyone is made to be a teacher, but for people that choose that career, like it gives back way more than you can imagine.
I'm sure. I couldn't imagine being a teacher. Because I remember what type of student I was.
Well, I just like that type student that I imagine you to be. Uh, I feel like those were some that I connected the best with because I just, as a person, I feel like that I'm pretty compassionate and I don't know, maybe sometimes students just wanted someone to pay attention to them or,
Sure.
you know, find the good in them. And because often, if they haven't been a great student, a lot that they hear is just a negative, or maybe they failed classes or whatever. So
Right.
it was a good career for me, and I'm happy that I got to be a part of it, and I'm really happy that I'm going to get to be a part of interviewing Charlotte Stewart about playing Miss Beadle.
All right. Well, let's talk to Charlotte.
Charlotte Stewart, I want to welcome you to Backstory Sessions. We are so excited to have you as our guest today.
Well, I'm excited that you're excited. Wow, my age, I don't know that that happens very often.
Well, I am looking at the title of your book, and
Yeah.
that is quite intriguing. So, Little House in the Hollywood Hills, a bad girl's guide to becoming Miss Beadle, Mary X, and me. So,
Uh-huh.
that title kind of indicates a paradox of sorts. When did the bad girl start?
Oh my God. Bad girl. I think I was born a bad girl, although I guess I got to high school. I was raised on a farm and in a small town, and all my all the girls were popular and cheerleaders and all of that, and I could never figure that out. It just didn't make any sense to me. So Bad Girl probably started when I moved away from home and ended up in Hollywood, of all places.
So you moved from, where was the farm? Where did you grow up?
The farm was in Northern California, Yuba City, California, and I couldn't get into college because I had terrible grades in high school. I was a terrible student, and all my friends were going off to UCLA and Stanford and fabulous colleges, and I couldn't. So I saw an advertisement on the back of Teen Magazine. I'm talking 1958. So Teen Magazine was popular, and it was a picture of Earl Holliman, and he was saying that he graduated from the Pasadena Playhouse, the State Theater of California. So I thought, oh, never had it occurred to me to be an actress, but that was kind of fascinating. So I wrote to the Pasadena Playhouse. I sent for an application. They sent it. I filled it out, signed my mother's name, and sent it back. And I was accepted. And then I told my mother.
Mom,
said,
remember that letter you signed?
Yeah, well, we'll see about this. I know. So I had to cop to it. So we drove to Pasadena. And I'm 17 years old, right? My sister and brother were both A students, off to college and all, and we don't know what I'm going to do. So we drive to Pasadena, and we see the Pasadena Playhouse, and I have to say, it was pretty darned impressive. It was 7 stories tall. It had 5 theaters. The part my mother loved was that I had to live in a dormitory for 2 years when I, if I was going to go there. And she said, okay. So that's how it started.
Wow.
And I was terrible when I first got there. In fact, one of my teachers said, you might want to rethink this. And that all it did was make me mad. And the next audition I did, the next play I did at the Pasadena Playhouse, she made the statement afterward that I was the most improved student in the class.
Aww.
So I don't know, I guess, something happened and I got more interested. But, it was, I wasn't in Hollywood. I was at a college in Pasadena, which is rather sedate. And it didn't happen until a talent scout. I was in the Miss California pageant that year because they wanted girls from small towns in California to be in the pageant. So they just let me be in the pageant. I didn't win Miss Yuba City, but I was in the pageant, and a casting director saw me, called me in after that, and I got a commercial for Tony Home Permanent.
Wow.
And
oh, wow.
I know. And then they made that into a TV commercial, and I started getting money. I did not know what it was about. I had no idea you got paid for doing it. So that was the start. And a casting director saw me and cast me in the Loretta Young Show. Do you remember the Loretta Young Show? You're too young.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, she was a famous movie star.
Yeah.
One of the first who would have a television series, of all things. How low can you get? But I did the Loretta Young Show, and then I just started doing all of those Bachelor Father, My 3 Sons, Medical Center, FBI, every television show that needed a teenager, because fortunately I looked younger than I was. By the time I was in my 20s, I still looked 18. And so I got a lot of work. And I decided, I was going to do this for a living.
So were you then feeling like that is a fit for you, like that is where you were supposed to be in acting?
Absolutely. Not a doubt about it. Plus, I was starting to meet, when you work in a lot of television and stuff, you start to meet celebrities. I married Tim Considine, who was the son on My 3 Sons.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, One of the first TV shows I did, I married the star. I mean, what do you say? And then, of course, in Hollywood, this was during the 1960s, 65, 66, getting into the 70s, which became, we were hippies. By the time we hit, the 70s, we were long-haired, dope-smoking, fringe-wearing hippies. So that's where the bad girls started. I was a young single girl making quite a bit of money in television, and it was, I guess, very attractive. And I started meeting rock and roll. One of my boyfriends was a manager for Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Joni Mitchell, and I started kind of moving in that crowd, which was, kind of racy, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, sure. Lots of, sort of the drug culture thing, I guess.
It was the start of the drug culture, basically, and it wasn't. We weren't, falling out, drug addicts or anything. We were smoking marijuana, okay?
Right. Yeah.
Smoking marijuana, maybe doing a couple other things, but nothing that would ever interfere with my work. My work came first. If I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to Paramount Studios to shoot, something,
Yeah.
I was always ready. It was. In fact, I have a funny story if you don't mind.
Sure.
Remember the Sharon Tate? At that time, we didn't know who was doing it. We didn't know who killed them. We didn't know there was a Charlie Manson running around.
Right.
But it was very scary because it was up in the canyons where a lot of my friends lived. And Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, they had a drummer named Dallas Taylor, and there was a party, not a big party, but a party at his house. And Joni Mitchell didn't drive yet. She had just moved out from Canada and didn't have a car, and I used to take her places. And so we were at Dallas's house when David Crosby and Stephen Stills came bursting through the door, saying, "They're killing everybody in Benedict Canyon."
Oh, no.
And we went, "What? Don't anybody go anywhere. Turn out the lights."
Oh, jeez.
It was very scary.
I bet.
Yeah.
And I said, but I have to shoot Bonanza tomorrow. I have to go home.
Little
So,
Joe
of
is
course,
waiting.
I have to jump in my car and drive home, get ready to go do a Bonanza.
That's funny.
So Michael Landon in Bonanza,
Yeah.
and then later in Little House on the Prairie. That's pretty interesting.
Well, I did 3 different episodes of Bonanza. I never met Michael.
Okay.
Although I'm sure he saw me because if you're in a television series, you watch the series, correct?
Sure.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm assuming. And so when I went in to read for Little House on the Prairie, I had never heard of it. I didn't know it was a children's book. I didn't know what it was about. All I know is it was a Western, and I was reading for a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to Paramount, and I walk in the waiting room, and there's all these women in Old West clothes. And I thought, oh, no. Of course, I'm in my jeans and a T-shirt, tie-dye T-shirt. And,
Wow.
and the casting director comes out. He says, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." I had the dialogue. It was the first day Mary and Laura go to school. And so it was a scene where I introduced them to the school. And so I go into the room, and it's all men, all the way around the room. There's 10 men, and a big desk at the end, and the producer is sitting there. And I look to my left, and there's Michael Landon sitting in a folding chair. And I thought, oh, my God, this is big. This is big. So the producer says to me, "Are you ready to read?" And I said, "May I sit behind your desk?" And he looked at me, and the men all looked at each other, and he said, "Okay." he got up and moved to a folding chair, and I went and sat behind the big desk, and they were starting to kind of murmur and laugh a little bit, and I said, "Quiet." I'm pretty sure that's what got me the part.
That's awesome.
I don't know what made me say, "Can I sit behind your desk?" It just came out, and I think it was a pretty good decision.
Yeah.
Because I got 4 years working with Michael Landon and Melissa, and Melissa Sue Anderson and Melissa Gilbert and all these incredible children that have now grown up to be dear friends of mine, as we get older.
Yeah, we talked to Allison Angrim not too long ago.
Oh, did she just knock your socks off?
Oh, she's awesome. Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
I was just on the road with her.
Oh.
And I just adore her. She's funny, she's hysterical, and she's one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Yeah,
You know what I mean,
Yeah, she seemed very sweet for sure.
Yeah, she speaks fluent French.
Yeah.
And she's very knowledgeable, and she has her own, Facebook show.
Yeah.
She cooks. She does it all.
What was it like on the set there? Were there, with a lot of children, actors, and
It was quite familiar, actually, for me, because my older sister, Barbara Jean, she had 7 children, and she's 9 years older than me. So she was already having children when I was still in high school. And they were, from 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, they were all ages. So that was a very familiar atmosphere to me to be in, children of all ages, and a little bit raucous,
Yeah, I can imagine.
She always had one at her breast, one on the floor, one falling down the stairs, So I kind of knew. And also Michael and the writers, obviously, wrote it very cleanly, very simply.
Mm-hmm.
And the good part about playing a teacher on a show is that children can only work so many hours. They can work, it depends on their age. The little ones, they can work 4 hours a day. So they have to keep leaving and going to the nursery or going to school. All the children had to go to school 4 hours a day. So they would leave for, 45 minutes to an hour at a time. And also they can't work past a certain time. So almost every show I had ever worked on, you work till 11 o'clock at night. You come in at 6 in the morning. I mean, that's just the way it is. Michael was a family man. He had a family he wanted to go home and have dinner with. And so did his crew. His crew had come to Little House from Bonanza. They waited until he got a show, and then, there they all were. So, we worked early, but we were off at 6 o'clock at night going home.
Awesome.
And that's the way it was with Michael Landon.
Is there any funny stories that happened like on the set that we didn't get to see?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't think I had a lot of funny stories there. It was mainly, we kind of hung out together. I was 33 when I did Little House on the Prairie, and when that was over, I went on to some very different shows than most people that watch Little House on the Prairie. I went on to Twin Peaks, which was a David Lynch series.
Yep.
I had done, before I did Little House, I had done David's first movie, which was called Eraserhead, which won the LA Film Critics Award. Yeah, it's pretty strange, but I had done that, and then after Little House, he asked me to go on to Twin Peaks. And, it was very different. Also, when I was doing Eraserhead, I was doing the Waltons. I did the first episode of the Waltons that was on the air. And David Lynch only works after midnight. He works from midnight till 6, 7 in the morning. So I would work all night long on Eraserhead, and then I would go to Warner Brothers and work on the Waltons. If you can imagine that diverse storyline.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting. I was just with the cast of the Waltons in Illinois a week and a half ago, reliving those days, and I told them which they didn't know that I had done Eraserhead.
Oh, wow.
And I told them that morning when I showed up to do the last scene in the Waltons in the living room, I was so confused. I was bumbling my lines and apologizing like crazy, and they had no idea why. And I finally, told them this time, what was going on. I was up all night with David Lynch.
Yeah, they might have thought you'd been at the Baldwin sisters.
I don't know. Who knew? I don't know.
Do you like being being a part of a series? Do you like that? Like, I imagine you become sort of like family over time.
Well, you do. Because I worked with mostly children, I didn't really get to know the rest of the cast. I mean, I did later, but I didn't work with Karen Grassley, who played Ma, and I didn't work with Victor French, and I didn't do a lot of work with Michael, because I was mainly in the schoolroom. Of course, Michael directed a lot of the shows, so I did know him there, but mainly I was with the kids, so I got to know their parents. Allison Arngram's mom was a pal, because we spent a lot of time, kind of sitting around the set waiting to shoot. But yeah, it was different for a teacher on a series because you're not with any of the other cats. I mean, with exception, I had a couple episodes where I worked with Karen, but mainly I was just with Melissa Gilbert, Melissa Sue Anderson, and Allison Arnhem. They were my pals, but they were children. So I did have a brief affair with Victor French while I was shooting.
Wow.
I adored Victor. He was at the time going through a really bad time. He had divorced and he was just in a bad way, and I just felt like I was more his friend than anything, giving comfort, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good time to talk about some of these relationships that you've had.
Oh, yeah? You read my book, huh?
And quite interesting. Not many people can say that they have. So were they mostly friendships or friends with benefits or?
Mostly, I would say mostly friends with benefits. The ones I fell in love with, I married, basically. That's just kind of the way it was. I was kind of a party girl, but not really. Friends with benefits is a good way to put it. I'll give you an example. I became friends with Jim Morrison of the Doors.
Mm-hmm.
I had a clothing store after Little House on the Prairie. It was called the Liquid Butterfly. You have to remember I was a hippie back then.
Yeah.
And the Liquid Butterfly was very popular with rock and roll. And I came into my store one day, and Jim Morrison was in the store. He was looking out the window, and he said, "Oh, do you mind if I'm in here?" And, yeah, like I'm going to say, no, get out.
Get out.
So he asked later on that day, his manager was across the hall. My store was basically in an office building upstairs on La Cienega Boulevard,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big restaurant boulevard. And so he said, "You want to go for a drink?" And I said, "Sure." So we'd walk down the street. And this happened quite a few times. He wanted someone to be with him, drink with him, and possibly go home with him. Except he went home with me instead of me going with him. I became his friend. And he hit a point in his life where he was arrested in Florida for indecent exposure. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was in a lot of trouble and possibly going to jail. So he said, "I need to get out of town." I guess the paparazzi were hounding him, and he said, "I need to get out of town." And he said, "You want to go?" And I said, "Okay, sure. Where are we going?" He said, "I haven't the faintest idea." And I said, "That's okay. I'll point." So I said, "Have you ever been up Highway 1 on the coast of California?" He said, "Nope." I said, "Okay, that's where we're going. I got friends up the road." So we took off and we drove up Highway 1. We went through Malibu. We got as far as Malibu the first night. That was, about 2 miles out of LA. So we got to Malibu. And then the next day we got back on the road and we got up to Solvang, which is where the Hearst Castle is.
Yeah.
And he had never been to the Hearst Castle. I said, by the way, we were stopping and playing pool all along the way, drinking and playing pool. And so, and I was just saying, turn here, turn there. And so we went up to Hearst Castle. In fact, in my book, you will see there's a picture of him with a sandwich or something at Hearst Castle.
Mm-hmm.
We went on the tour. And, it was interesting. He'd never been there. He didn't know anything about William Randolph Hearst. And then I took him to see some friends there that one was a metal sculptor, Peter Fells. And Peter didn't even know who he was. Jim didn't look like Jim Morrison then.
Hmm.
He was kind of overweight. He had a full beard, long hair. And my friend Peter had no idea it was Jim Morrison. But they got along famously because Peter showed Jim his sculpture that he was working on and showed him around his studio and stuff. And Jim was fascinated, and what it did was it got his mind off all that trouble.
Right, yeah.
He had so many people hounding him.
Hmm.
And I actually asked him when we were on the road, I said, because he was arrested for indecent exposure, and I said, what happened? Did you do it? And he said, yeah, I don't remember it, but that's what they told me. He said, I had been drinking all the way from California to Texas, and our plane got delayed, and we had to hang out and drink some more. And by the time I got to Florida, I don't remember anything. You don't remember anything.
Yeah.
And he said, so they tell me I did. So, and he didn't want to talk anymore about it, which I understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was avoiding. So I just forgot it. So we spent 4 days on the road and got back to LA, and he dropped me off at my store, and I never saw him again because within 6 months he was dead.
Jeez.
Wow.
And I just, I think if anything, I was happy. I was glad that we did the trip. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't love. It was friends with benefits, like you said.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I gave him a little bit of peace, for the end. But
Sure.
he didn't know it was the end. He went to Europe with his wife Pam, and they settled in Paris. And I guess he got into some drugs and stuff there.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. But it broke my heart.
So,
Well,
I mean, was this like a you said a lot of people came in there into your store and stuff.
Oh my God. One day Joni Mitchell came in and left.
As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can send those to Kat at iWritePlays@outlook.com, or you can write to me at backstorysessions@gmail.com or Matt at level11ventures.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been like, I guess, sort of the norm for you, because these people are coming in and out of your career and also your business here with the store. And
it was fairly common, it was fairly common to, for people to, walk in and out or to be somewhere. I don't know. It was my normal life at that point. Joni Mitchell would be playing the Troubadour, and, so we'd go there. And, Neil Young was, I remember sitting in the dressing room at the Troubadour. Troubadour is rock, kind of was, I don't know if it still is, rock and roll.
Right.
Not a huge venue, but pretty big. And so Joni Mitchell was opening for Neil Young. The troubadour.
Wow.
You can imagine. And I had to work on a TV show the next day, and I was dating their manager, Elliot Roberts, and so that's how I happened to be there with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing either a Gunsmoke or FBI or Medical Center or one of those television shows the next day. So I had my script and I had to study. So I was up in the dressing room while Neil was tuning his guitar. That's how casual life was then.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems a little surreal to hear those things, and
I know, but that was my norm.
Yeah. Wow.
That was my norm. And of course, I've gone through a lot of down times too. I drank very heavily at the end of that. After I left Little House on the Prairie, I kind of got out there too far, and I had a drinking problem, and I got sober. I was sober for 26 years when I married my third husband. We were sober together 22 years, and then he passed away 12 years ago, and I went off the wagon again, and I just got sober again. So this Friday, the 5th of May, I will have 1 year sobriety again.
Awesome.
So I'm back on track.
Congratulations.
Yeah, all that stuff took its toll. I thought I was taking care of myself, and I wasn't.
Right.
But I didn't. There was nobody to blame but me. It happens. I am an alcoholic, and when I give in to my disease, I go off the end. But I'm pretty committed now. Sober for be a year on Friday. So yeah.
Do you do the AA meetings and all that, or is?
I do it every day.
Oh, okay.
I missed my one today because I had to drive 25 miles to a fabric store because I'm working on my bags.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you know anything about the Beadle bags. I make tote bags with pictures from Little House on the Prairie, and I take them with me on these journeys to the Midwest and all over. I sold all my bags in Illinois, and that's why I'm sewing like crazy now, because I leave again a week from today to go to, where am I going? I forget.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I'm going. They'll send me a ticket and I get on a plane.
Like
but that's
a surprise.
my life now. And then, somebody said one time you should write a book, and I said, it was when I moved to Napa. I moved to Napa when I retired at 65 because I couldn't remember lines anymore, quite frankly. I was not doing well with work. And I said, okay, I'm not going to embarrass myself or anybody else anymore. I quit. So I called my agent and I said, don't submit me for anything anymore because I don't think I will do it very well. And I would rather not, be an embarrassment to people and stuff. Right. So I quit acting. But then I started getting calls to go on the road with these venues, where people come from all over to get your autograph. That I had no idea what that. Allison probably talked a lot about that,
yeah,
right?
She did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, she does a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I started getting offers to do that, and I wanted something to sell, and I've always sewn. I told you I had a clothing store. I used to make cowboy shirts and vests and women's kind of peasant dresses. That's what I was known for, those three things. And then I sold the store when I got Little House, so I hadn't sewn in a long time. But now I make Beadle bags, and they sell like crazy.
That's awesome.
I sell them online. I post them on Facebook, and then when I go on tour, I take them with me, and I sold every one I had in Missouri.
How do you keep up with the orders? I mean, is it just you, or do you have help? Or?
No, I don't have help. It's just me.
Wow.
I just I try to make 2 to 3 a day.
Wow.
And that takes me. I don't just lock myself in the room, but I've got it down pretty good. So that when I put it together, when I cut it and put it together, I mean, I do everything from buying the fabric to cutting the fabric, putting it all together, designing the look.
Right.
And it's very relaxing for me. So my husband will sit down and watch Blood and Guts on television, and I go in my sewing room.
That's funny.
But they're very popular, so and it pleases me very much, and I charge a lot of money for them, and I get it. So
That's cool.
it's working.
So, what was the response to your book? I mean, did you get a lot of feedback from that?
Oh my God, yes. Because I tell the truth in my book. I tell the bad things and the good things and the oh my God things.
Right.
When I was first approached to write the book, I had already moved to Napa. I had quit acting, and my writing partner worked for the local newspaper. He was a writer and a newspaper man, and his children were in a ballet, and I was asked by the local ballet company to play Mother in the Christmas ballet. There's no dancing involved.
Right.
All she does is kind of,
There.
waltz across the room once with Pa.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of downtime. And Andy said, "You should write a book." And I went, "Oh, I barely got out of high school. Are you kidding? I can't write a book." He said, "No." He said, "Just tell stories." Because that's what I'd been doing.
Right.
We were sitting on the floor of the ballet company waiting for our turn to rehearse. And so I would just sit there and tell Andy stories. And so I did. I sat down and I wrote one and I gave it to him. And he said, "You got to do more than this." So we used to meet every 2 weeks at Starbucks. And I would tell him stories. And he would come back 2 weeks later with it all written out. And I would tell him another story. So that's how I wrote the book. I just told stories, just like he told me to.
That's great.
Because you can tell it's in my voice.
Was it difficult to decide to expose some of the dark moments, such as...
Yeah, no, it wasn't hard at all, because Andy said, "Whatever you do, tell the truth." And that was the truth. The things I told in there about myself, which maybe weren't so pleasant, or so pretty.
Yeah.
That's me. And I'm not the only one that happens to. This is life. This is the world. People make mistakes. And I needed to admit that, I made a lot of mistakes. But you know what? You can get over it. You can recover. You can make amends. And you can change your life. And I really feel that's what happened to me at the point where when I was writing the book. It really opened my eyes that I wasn't just this boring drunk. I had some things to say about life and about treatment, how you treat each other and how to recover and how to make the best, of what you got. And I believe that that's what I did. My husband passed away and about 12 years ago, and I met an old friend at my brother's house. His sister had married my brother, and I hadn't seen Michael for some 30 years. And we looked at each other at the door, and I said, "Come on in." And about 3 days later, he moved in with me, and we've been together ever since.
Wow.
We've been married for 7 years, and life is wonderful.
And so is that what you learned from writing the book about yourself? Is that you...
I guess I never had looked at myself. I had never taken a look at how I was dealing with life or what I was doing or why I was doing it. And that I needed to look at the mistakes I had made and wondering why I had made them, and that I could recover. Recovery isn't just from alcohol. Recovery is from living. I see a lot of people who are not alcoholic and don't drink, and they are terrible. They behave badly. They treat their children badly.
Yeah.
And so recovery is more than just, recovering from an addiction. I learned a lot along the way. and I feel blessed. I feel solely blessed. And this last week, I've had a lot of pain in the family. My nephew passed away suddenly of cancer. His niece is it's my love. Teresa is my sister's child. And I just love my family. And my sister's husband passed away. His memorial is this Friday. And so there's a lot of heaviness right now in emotion. And yet I had a lot of joy with those people. Paolo, my niece's husband, and Herb, my sister's husband. I love them so much. And now we're going to celebrate them. And I have a very close family, and I'm so lucky. I see so many people who can't stand their family, but
Yeah.
I'm really lucky. So lucky.
Cat?
So, have
I brought you to a home.
people responded, like after they read the books? Have they responded to you that maybe they were an addict and some impact that the book had, like it gives them hope?
Sometimes I get when I hear people, it's mostly women, older women, and they say, I read your book. And I said, yeah, did you even read the bad part? They went, oh, yes. They're a little bit shocked, but they're delighted because it had a happy ending, that I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I gave somebody hope who had been through a similar situation. I mean, I had breast cancer, and it put me in a path to understand what that meant to a woman. And when I got to Napa, my niece had breast cancer, and she was in treatment here at the hospital, and they had this fabulous program for her. After her surgery and chemo and radiation, she got to go to a recovery program to get her back on her feet. Now, when I had cancer back in 1991, there wasn't such a thing. And I went to the biggest hospital in LA, Cedars-Sinai. There was no recovery. I finished my program, and they said, bye.
Good luck.
See you later. Have a nice life. And it took me forever to recover because it's painful and it's tiring, and I couldn't work. So when I saw that, I became an advocate here in Napa. And that's when I started my Beadle bags, and I gave 20% off the top to the recovery program here called Bosom Buddy. So, I wanted women who had gone through breast cancer to have an alternative to recovery, so that they had this wonderful program. So I still support it today.
That's awesome. So I'm
Yep.
curious, like, how much effect did leaving Little House have on you and your life? I mean, were you doing other things while you were acting on that show, or was that like?
No, I did one movie of the week, a Return to Peyton Place kind of movie. It wasn't very good.
Okay.
No, when I was doing Little House, I was under contract for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't do anything else. And then after I did that, I did Twin Peaks, but it wasn't under contract. I just didn't have a lot else going on, and I was free.
Oh, I
And David Lynch was, still a good friend of mine. So he, God bless him, he put me in as much as he could. And I had a ball.
see. Yeah.
I had so much fun doing that. And then Jack Nance. Have you seen Eraserhead?
I have. It was many years ago, though. So.
Yeah, Jack Nance, who played Henry, the main character in
Yeah.
Eraserhead,
Yeah.
was also in Twin Peaks. And he had just gotten out of treatment and didn't have a place to live. And so we moved in together. So when we were doing Twin Peaks, we were actually roommates. We weren't a couple. We were roommates. And David Lynch was both our best friend,
Yeah.
so it was perfect. And I think I helped Jack get through his recovery.
Yeah.
And then that's where he met Kelly and got married, and like that. So Yeah, old friends are the best friends. That's my motto.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like if you ran into Neil Young, I mean, do you think he would remember you?
Oh my God, I did a movie with him.
Oh,
I
really?
played Charlotte the waitress in a movie called Human Highway. You got to look it up.
Okay.
Absolutely, he wrote the foreword to my book.
Oh,
If
okay.
you look at the back of my book, he writes there. Oh, I forget what he wrote. I don't have my book handy right now. Hang on. My book is right here. I just ordered a bunch more to take on my next trip. Yeah, if you look at the back of the book,
Uh-huh.
right at the top, it says, "I didn't know Miss Beadle knew so much about sex, drugs, and rock and roll." That's Neil.
That's hilarious.
And David Lynch wrote a piece on it, and then Nellie Allison Armstrong wrote an inspiring story of survival. She's the last, thing on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Neil is a very good friend, although I don't see him very often because he lives in a different state, and I don't run in that crowd anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody runs in that crowd anymore. Aren't they all dead?
They're a dying breed for sure.
Oh my God.
So when you go out and meet the fans for Little House,
Yeah.
do you do the same for Twin Peaks? Because I know they have a lot of, following too.
Listen, I have to tell you, I just drove 40 miles to a fabric store because Napa is a very small town. They have no fabric store here.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have to go buy product, I have to drive up the road a bit. And so I'm in the store today, and there's this woman and guy waiting on me, and they know who I am because I go there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently they had told some other people who I was. And I got stopped for autographs in the fabric store. And then when I got to checkout, and I bought quite a bit because it's a long drive and I don't want to do it, every day.
Sure.
I bought a lot of stuff. And so the guy that was checking me out was a nervous wreck. He just says, I saw Twin Peaks, and I saw Eraserhead, and he was shaking so hard. It's embarrassing to say, but he was shaking so hard. And I'm trying to calm him down because he said, "I'm going to give you a discount." And he went through, they have that little list of different discounts they can get.
Yeah.
He went on all of them. He took about $150 off my tab. So I got to give you this discount. So yeah, people recognize me. Yes, they
That's
do.
awesome.
But not here in Napa. They don't know who I am in Napa. In Napa, when I first got here, they asked me to do the ballet.
Right.
They asked me to be the hostess at a screening of the Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a small thing. It was a theater, thing. But now, I've been here 13 years or so, and all that is gone, and COVID, and everybody stayed home,
Sure.
and nobody knows me at all. Nobody.
Do you prefer that?
Well, yeah, because I don't want to have to put on hair and makeup every day.
Yeah, sure.
I could go to this. Right now, I'm in my jeans. I didn't even comb my hair. I didn't put makeup on today. And I still got noticed at the fabric store, I'm 82 years old,
Pretty good, Miss Beadle.
Oh my God, you're telling me I'm still making money off this thing.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? I'm truly blessed.
Well, it's certainly a fascinating story, and I think it's definitely a real story that people I think can relate to because you are so transparent about life.
Well, I'm enjoying my life, and I never thought it would come to this, where I would be interviewed. I did a Zoom interview yesterday. Of course, the camera on my computer didn't work, so it ended up me just being a voice.
Yeah.
But we went out and bought a new camera. I thought you were going to do it Zoom today, so I got the camera fixed. I'm all ready if you want to do one next time.
Well, we'd certainly love to have you back. This has been a lot
Oh,
of fun.
I would love it. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you picked out some things in the book that I like to talk about too, you know.
Wonderful.
All right.
Well, it's fascinating. You've been a fascinating guest, and
Thank you so much. I just so appreciate it. And God bless you both. And let's do it again.
All right.
All
That
right.
sounds good. Take care, Charlotte.
Okay. Thank you. God bless you.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.